Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello, good morning to you. Welcome back, squad, and welcome today to the home of Mercedes in Stuttgart, Germany. However, I'm here today with the GTR, but we're going to be swapping it in for something a little bit more sensible to go out and drive today. The new Mercedes-AMG GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. And I know that name is a complete mouthful. We'll talk more about that later on. But today I'm going to drive the new GLC mini SUV, but still powered by the 510 horsepower V8, and see if it is a contender for my daily driver out here in Germany. So I'm going to show you around the car, we'll take it out for a test drive, see what it's like out on the roads, and then we'll come back and have some thoughts at the end about whether this could be the choice to drive out here. So let's get started taking a look around the car. Where we are today is at the Mercedes Plaza, or the Daimler Plaza, so unsurprisingly it is Mercedes cars only that are allowed here, but awesome to bring the GTR back to visit another Mercedes location. It's the home of the press cars though, hence the GLC 63 that we're going to be driving today. Now before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about that mouthful of a name and what it means. So Mercedes have been trying to simplify the naming structure, but it's taking, I think, a little bit of time to get used to. For an SUV, it starts with GL. You have the GLA, the GLC, the GLE, and the GLS, increasing in size as you go through the alphabet. This being the GLC is one of the smaller platforms. It shares a lot of similarities with the C-Class, hence the GLC naming. It's the 63, which means it comes from Mercedes-AMG. It's got the 4-litre biturbo V8, which makes 510 horsepower, and you can have it in a number of different variants, coupe or the regular SUV format with a larger amount of luggage space at the back, but slightly less sporty looks. There's a small price premium for the coupe, and then being the S model, that means it has 4MATIC Plus, the variable all-wheel drive system that we'll talk more about. It also has a little bit more power. The regular non-S has 476 horsepower, so that's again about £6,750 for that increase too. So this is the very top model of the 4 different AMG models wearing the 63 badge, and then beneath that is the 43 model that I've actually driven with before, the 3-litre biturbo V6. Right, that's a little bit confusing, but that's basically what it all stands for, the GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. Now let's take a look at the car. So it's the sportiest model of the GLC platform, which means as you take a look around, you will notice one distinct familiarity between this car and the AMG GTR, and that is the front grille. It wears this historical Panamericana front grille, which is coming into a number of the different AMG models. We've seen it on the S63 Coupe and convertible, but it's worn now at the front of this car, and along with the styling of the lower bumper, which is of course differentiated from the lesser models in the lineup, being more aggressive, having more, I guess, intake cooling areas for bringing the temperature of the engine down with airflow through the car. It has a very distinct, I suppose, styling that Mercedes are carrying out across their models now, but basically it is a 5-door SUV/hatch, so it has the sporty coupe rear line, but the first impression is that it's actually distinctly smaller than you realise at first. Honestly, when I first came up to it, I was expecting the car to be bigger and have more presence. It has the styling of, say, the GLS, but in a much smaller platform, which leads me to think that it's probably going to be quite an interesting car to take out and drive. So it has this clever 4MATIC Plus system. The rear wheels are permanently driven. The front axle has variable power depending on the conditions for the optimum grip and performance. So a very clever system, seeing it across Mercedes range in a way, and this car has the front suspension system from a C63 and the rear from an E63. So setups that are again shared, very familiar and very effective. Let's come around and just open the door and have a little glance at the interior, because this is really very nice. It's the top level trim, of course, and this is a very highly optioned car of the GLC or of the C-Class. It has familiarities like this large carbon fibre, almost waterfall through the centre console, a large floating tablet-style display, a small digital display in the screen, not the full digital displays that we're seeing in some of Mercedes' other models or coming in for the newer generation. But you've got the performance seats, very nicely finished with the contrasting stripe around them. And like I said, incredibly well equipped. You can just get a glimpse of this from your assistance buttons and the like here, lane guidance, steering, 360 cameras, all of that side of things. And importantly, if we come and just open up the engine bay to come and have a look at the one man, one engine from a full to back. Lift up the bonnet, catches right there. There we have it, the 4-litre biturbo V8. In fact, an engine that is shared with the GTR. However, in the GLC, it's very much in the same configuration as the AMG GT S. So 510 horsepower, 700 Newton meters of torque. In the non-S version of the GLC, it has 476 horsepower and 650 Newton meters. But this car does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles per hour, in 3.8 seconds, which is an awful lot quicker than its nearest competitors, the Macan Turbo and the BMW X3 M40i. So we can see a bit of the engine, not too much to show you, but it sounds amazing. Mercedes-AMG really have this ability to make their biturbo V8s sound truly awesome, as you can hear just from the grumble of the GLE 63 that heads out. So 4-litre V8, button checked for awesome noise, and that very much works with the performance exhaust that is fitted to this car with the quad tailpipes, which make quite a grumble, as we're going to hear when we fire it up. So this is very much a contender for, I suppose, this usage. For practicality, if we come and have a quick glance at the rear, there's a decent amount of space back there, but we'll check it out in more detail later on. For technology and functionality as well. But what's it going to be like to drive? Typically, with an SUV, you might lose some of the feel, some of the dynamic driving style, but it's got 3-chamber suspension with different variable modes, so it should be quite an interesting car to experience. I think, though, I am very, very cold. As you can probably see, there's a bit of snow around, so I'll park up the GTR, and we will take out the GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. Yes, I'm going to make sure I say it in full every time, for a drive, and we'll see what it's like out on the roads. Off we go then in the car with one of the world's longest ever names, and I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but let's also talk about the price. In the UK, the base model GLC 63 starts at £69,000. If you add the premiums for the Coupe and for the 63S, this car is a £78,000 car, so 95,000 euros here in Germany. Now for that, you do get a very premium car. I'm not going to lie, it feels very luxurious and comfortable. It really is a good place to be. Part of that comes from the sound of the engine, the feeling of it, the 9-speed speed shift automatic gearbox, and generally everything's good quality and well made, nice materials, that side of things. But can you imagine the phone call with your service advisor? He calls and, or you call and you want to book your car, and he says, so what model do you have? I've got the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. Oh yes, that one. It is quite a mouthful, so you get a lot of letters and parts of the name for your money. However, let's be a little bit more serious. We've got variable driving modes. Traditionally with Mercedes you can have individual, so you can set it up with a very sporty characteristic with soft suspension. If you're me, that's how you like it. Right now I'm in comfort, where it moves along without much exhaust noise. The performance exhaust is valve controlled, so it's very docile and gentle. The suspension is very, very supple. It rides over small bumps in the road nicely. However, we're on a decent little stretch here, so let's go into sport mode, where it drops a gear. We get a little bit more noise, but not loads. Goes up through one setting of the variable suspension, so getting a little bit tougher. You can feel that, sense it. The range and variation in the different damper settings is clearly becoming more and more dramatic. Or you can go one further, go into Sport Plus. You can also go up to race, but we won't do that on the roads. It's in the stiffest suspension mode right now, and I can feel that. I'm going to press manual on the paddles because I like, on the gearbox, I like shifting manually. The exhaust is of course open, but let's just drop down some gears. It's the engine from an AMG GT S. It sounds incredible. Listen to the noise of it. And when you actually downshift, you get pops and burbles and bangs. And that just V8 soundtrack. Yes, it's a heavy car. It's 2,020 kilos, so a touch over 2 tons. But do you know what? It actually drives really quite well. It's a larger car, obviously, than a base C-Class, but it's not huge. It's not as big as, say, a GLE, so height-wise, you're raised a little, enough to have good visibility in town driving and feel like you have that SUV-style seating position with, obviously, lots of practicality, luggage space. We'll have a look around that later on. But still maintain some dynamic capabilities. And that noise, that is, for me, the absolute thing you're paying for, other than the performance, is the soundtrack. To still have engines that sound as good. In fact, I'm going to pull over somewhere because I want to play this to you and let you listen to it properly. Let me just pop it quickly into race mode then. So we're into race, everything is as loud as possible, exhaust is open, and listen to the noise of this thing. It is quite frankly absurd. The noise that it makes, the crackles. This is an SUV. In fact, a fairly small form SUV, and it does that. Now to pull back out on the road, let's pop it back into Sport Plus. It's got variable traction control, 3 different stages of stability control, but obviously it does not make sense today in this wet, slightly snowy conditions to be driving in any kind of slippy mode. This channel is basically becoming Schnee 150 because all of these videos in Germany, there is just snow everywhere. Anyway, let me just straighten it out a little bit and feel a little bit of this 500 horsepower. So second gear, goodness me. Up to the red line, 700 Newton meters of torque there, pulling away like crazy. So this is the thing that's riding over the bumps there actually. In the firmer suspension setting, you definitely feel it a lot more. In the softest setting, it dampens it rather well. So I think you could probably say that this is totally unnecessary. Who needs 510 horsepower in a car like this? Typically, if you see this car, you're expecting it to have a small diesel engine. It obviously has the 9-speed gearbox, which you find you're shifting forever through. We could put it back into maybe a more gentle mode. So it's very expensive, it's very unnecessarily powerful, and there are 1 or 2 funny parts of the outside. Wait until I show you the rear spoiler, actually. I don't think I showed you earlier. The deck lid spoiler on the back is just absurd, to be honest. So it's very unnecessary in many fronts, and I think often if you're the kind of person who wants an AMG of this ilk, you're going to be looking at a GLE or a GLS, the larger cars, not necessarily the smaller one. For me, I quite like the smaller form factor because it feels more relatable as, you know, a car to use in cities and towns, a daily driver car when I don't need too much practicality. I haven't sat in the back yet to see what the headroom and space, leg space is like, but I'll hopefully experience that when we get back. But it's just a funny package. It's just a really unusual package, but it works with Mercedes because they have all these different models and different engines, and they're created in a way that they can cross parts and use, similarly to other brands, this very formulaic process to put together cars with different components, which in a way detracts a little bit from the character of them. But when you've got this engine, even if it's big and heavy, does anything really matter anymore? It sounds so good, even though it's the twin turbocharged unit. They've somehow done it so well, and to me, that is such an important part of the character of the car and makes it so entertaining to drive just by having the engine, even if you don't need the power, because you drive gently like this and you're still aware of the small grumble in the background. If you put it into Sport Plus, then you're definitely aware of it. Whatever you do, you've got that constant burble going on that, like I started by saying, makes the car feel a little bit more premium. Now here's one of my favourite things about this car. Come to a stop, pop it into race mode, hold your foot on the brake and on the throttle, race start, and go. And this is uphill, and it did that without so much as a squirm. All-wheel drive, uphill, wet and slippy, and it just takes off and shoots like a rocket. There's no complicated system to engage the right mode. I'm going to pop it back into Sport Plus. You literally just go into race, which has sport stability control, foot on the brake, hold it, give it full throttle, let the boost build, and away you go. That is it. And it honestly, for a car like this, you just do not expect it to be able to take off like that. It's time to experience the car in the dual carriageway motorway type environment, so I'm going to pop it back into comfort mode, which is naturally where you'd want it, and talk a bit more about what it's like. So seats are very comfortable, they always are. The steering wheel has the Dynamica microfiber, so it's great grip, it feels very sporty, quite a small chunky wheel, but with all of the convenience and functionality features and buttons that you expect to have on a Mercedes or AMG product wheel. You've got a lot of technology and equipment, so things like adaptive cruise control, steering assist to keep you in the lanes. If you run over the side without indicating, it vibrates. You've got a head-up display with your rev counter and other bits of information, nav system, all of that. This car has the Burmester sound system, which is also very good. So the tech level is very high. 360 cameras with the folding camera that folds up out of the badge flap at the rear, if you've seen that on Mercedes models before. Small digital display, so yes, you could have the full 12.3-inch style displays that the E-classes and S-classes have, but that's not made it into this generation. Everything that you need, I suppose, the car has. Well equipped. One thing I do not like is the rear visibility. Oh, there we go. Just feeling the vibrations as I start to slide out towards the other lane. The rear visibility, I was going to say. So there is a very small window through which you can see while driving this car. It is pretty not very helpful for a car of this size, and this car's more expensive than its more practical regular GLC equivalent, the non-coupe version of it. Most people would most likely go for that. This is, I would say, more baller, cooler as a car, but slightly less useful. We could pop it onto cruise control, which you do like that. Distance pilot, Distronic, so it has the safety systems as well. It will detect if you're going to have an incident and brake for you and tighten the seat belt, which is something that's quite intriguing to experience, but obviously very protective and saves you from worse damage were the worst to happen. Automatic climate control, I mean basically everything that we come to know. Memory seats, heated seats. I think there's not really too much else, I suppose, necessarily to tell you about the inside side of things, other than showing you through all the systems later. But it's a comfortable place to be. It's an enjoyable car to drive. You have this good viewpoint. Being a heavy car with a big engine, it's presumably not the most efficient in the world, but I don't think it can be too bad. We've got good range so far out of only a small part of the fuel in the tank. Then when the speed limit slows down, you can click 10 kilometers an hour at a time, or 1 at a time. Sometimes cars only let you go down in groups of 5 or 10, which is really annoying. But here you can just adjust it nice and easily with the cruise control stalk on the left. You have to remember that wipers are on the left, because the right stalk is used for your drive. Your Prundle, park, reverse, neutral and drive is done through the stalk rather than through anything in the centre. But that's more or less the driving experience in here. It has a character from the noise. It's an enjoyable car to drive. We will head now towards, I think, the Mercedes Museum, where I can park up and have a look more around the practicality side and show you some more of the controls that are available in here. I'm now parked here at the museum, the Mercedes-Benz Museum, and there's a dealership just over there as well. But let's have a look around the interior, the dashboard, the screens, the controls, and the features that you have inside here in the GLC. So you can see it's very modern, lots of carbon fibre, the lovely sporty steering wheel that I mentioned earlier, but we'll go through all of the controls. So I'll start right over here at the door. You have the seat controls as standard on the door panels on Mercedes, so they're always up there, with the lumbar controls down here on the side of the seat, but not the actual seat controls themselves. So you've got seat heating, the Burmester sound system, many multi-way seat controls with memory function, all of your windows and mirror controls, folding the mirrors as well. They fold inwards and upwards, carbon fibre mirrors. Naturally on here, door lock and unlock. The button for opening and closing the boot is down there, the electronic motorised tailgate. Then here above your light controls, you have all of the different stability and features and assistance buttons. Obviously we're limited to 240 kilometers an hour in this car because we are wearing winter tyres. On the steering wheel, like I mentioned, you have the controls for the infotainment in the centre, so your trip info, navi, basically depending what you want to have opened up, and your AMG display, where you have a number of other controls like your G sensor, your information about how your driving modes are currently set up, your lap timer, and then background, so you can have this showing whichever bit of information you would like it to show. So if you went into the music controls, Bluetooth not connected naturally, but that's all easily available through there. Radio comes on, sounds very good. I'm just going to mute it. There's a direct mute button on this side, volume controls, your telephone, and your voice recognition if you'd like to talk to it. So either side, flanking the central display, where you've seen the selection of gear up top and your drive mode up here, you obviously have your speedometer to the left, your fuel gauge underneath, your rev counter over to the right, revving up to 7,000 there, and your oil temperature underneath. If you go back home to the AMG mode, you can see the temperature. Sorry, that was water temperature down there of the oil and the gearbox. Quite interesting to see the gearbox temps, rather unusual to be honest. Then on the back of the steering wheel, naturally you have your paddle shifters that are fixed to the wheel. You have your gear selector on the right. If we just put it into reverse quickly, you can see that almost instantly the 360-degree camera loads up, as well as the rear view straight out of the back. So that's the system that folds, put it back into park, and that goes away, and you can actually just hear the motorized whir of that happening at the back. On the left you have your wipers, so the sensitivity is sped up and increased by twisting that. You wash the windows by pressing the button on the end, usual indicators and lights control, and then down below is your adaptive cruise control and your speed limiter. So your distance to the vehicle in front is controlled by twiggling the end of this. Push it away from you to swap between limiter and cruise control up to set, and then change your speed, so a 1 km/h increment, or click it and it will do 10 at a time. All works very nicely. Over to the right, the key slot is just in here. You can get a starter button, I believe, but we have the normal Mercedes key on this car. And then moving further right, the command online system connected, always with a SIM card inside the car, so you're always online. Comes with, I think, 3 years of subscription. That sits above the vents. We'll go through some of the displays in a moment. Then you've got your climate control, dual zone, above your hotkeys for the different entertainment functionality. Then you have a nice cubby storage with a folding carbon lid over the top of it with 2 cup holders, 12 volt, and a charging pad for your mobile phone devices in front of the controller. So in here you can loosely go through the different modes, Navi, radio, everything up here into apps. It's all set for German at the moment, making my life a little bit harder, but that's car settings, where you have a picture of our vehicle, dynamic select, where you can configure the different driving modes, configure individual if you click in here. So this is where you can see a small sample of the variable settings that you have. So exhaust, traction, engine, suspension, and gearbox, all of which can be configured or adjusted using this toggle on the left hand side. So to change between the different driving modes, forward to soften it in effect, and it gives you a live representation of what you're changing: sport, sport plus, and race mode. And also on the driver dashboard as well, you can see through those, and individual. So I quite like driving it in comfort regularly. Then you have a 1 push towards individual, which you could, if you had customized the settings on, have basically set up for everything in sport. I would have stability in sport, I'd have exhaust in sport plus, I'd have gearbox in manual because it's more fun, and I'd have suspension in comfort. Yes, and of course powertrain sport plus. That is my individual configuration right there. You can also have a number of other bits and bobs, like the displays, the AMG style displays, different information. Oh wait, just gone around in a circle. So that's quite nice what you can actually show inside the system. Data screens and the like, so you can see brake pressure, which is quite a fun one, throttle pressure as well as I rev it there, and G-forces as well. So lots of information there. Then around this you have additional buttons, so manual gearbox, your 3-stage variable dampers, your 3-stage stability controls. On the other side, volume control, exhaust open or closed, auto start stop, and an ability to lift the suspension if you need a little bit more access or you're driving it off road. Obviously the controller here all interacts with the display. You can swipe around and get it to move by literally doing this, or if you're on an entry screen you can type with a natural kind of input using your finger. Everything the same over on the passenger side. The air vents continuing around carbon fibre inlays. Interesting that it doesn't have a carbon fibre trim piece around that vent. Glove box, decent amount of storage space inside there, and this armrest actually has a ton of space. It's a very deep bucket with USB ports, SD card at the front, but lots of room to put stuff in there. Dual-sided, so you can click that back down as well. Seats themselves embossed with the Autobahns logo at the top. AMG where the engines are built. Perforated leather, looks very nice. I like the dual tone, the contrast, and you can move the front under leg rest as well, thigh rest forwards. Silver seat belts going nicely with the silver trim in this car, and again on the seats as well, so all ties in rather neatly down there. Coming up top, you've got a sunglasses storage cubby hole right here, a couple of buttons for connecting to services and your alarm and your reading lights, and bits and bobs up there where you've got the lights glowing at the moment. The car actually has an interior lighting pack, so you won't see much of it in the daytime, but it's got a dim blue light here that also comes through underneath around the outside of the center console, but generally nice ambient lighting all around the car. However, I think that's taken you pretty much through everything we have up front here for the driver. So let us turn the car off for the moment, put the key in my pocket, and we will jump back to take a look in the rear and then in the boot. So for backseat space, I've apparently made the car rather dirty on my errands today. The front seat is of course in my driver's position, so I will step in, see what the room is like back here. Knee room, perfectly fine, lots of space up there. Headroom, I'm aware here that the side is quite near, but I've got enough headspace above me. I'm about 1.80 m, just short, so a large size adult could fit here comfortably. You just wouldn't want to lean necessarily too far over because your head is going to bang on the side quite quickly. In front of us, you've got climate control settings back here, a little storage cubby hole underneath as well. The seats have a fixed base, do they? Yes. There's a loading system, I guess, that you might be able to have through here, but otherwise armrest with, if we open it up, some storage, cup holders in the end, which will open, secure your drinks. So we can close this up. It is a clearly folding system. We'll head round to the back and have a look in the boot as well in a moment, but you can start to see what I mean by there's a very narrow window to see through here at the back. Sensors here, parking sensors, which make life a little bit easier. So come around to the rear, where, given quite how dirty it is, let's get the key out, open the tailgate, up it pops. Decent amount of space, I guess, but obviously, given that it is the coupe, it doesn't go up very high. You'd have much more practicality back here if you had the regular shaped car. And also I'm going to point out that the rear load level is actually pretty high. You have to lift things quite high to get them over that and into the car to actually load them. Quick look under there, usual tyre kit and bits and pieces. And then here you have the buttons to release the seats. So you'd pull that. Okay, I do actually like that. That's a pretty convenient system. So to lower those down, and then you can lower the suspension as well to make access slightly easier using this toggle. So it could be worse, could be a bit harder. Let us just lower this back down and tailgate for the moment, where you get the GLC 63S badging, the AMG badging. So what I was saying about the rear camera, that literally flips and then the camera is pointing down towards the ground. From the rear, you could be easily mistaken whether you're looking at the GLC, the GLE, the GLS. They're all very similar, but with the noticeable addition on this car of this huge carbon fibre rear ducktail spoiler attached to the boot lid. This is a very unusual shape, the way it sticks directly out the back, but part of, I guess, the carbon fibre package all around the car. And down at the bottom of the back, you've got quite an aggressive looking diffuser, which is cool on an SUV. You can see the way the airflow clearly comes through it. It's just now a little bit dirty and salt covered, my bad, but we've had fun on the roads around here today. One thing I don't like, I always talk about the silver rim on AMG wheels. As much as I think the wheel design is cool, the silver rim, to me, not 100% sure of it. This car has red calipers, but you can have an optional ceramic brake set as well, should you prefer, for about £4,000 on the car if you need more braking. The brakes have felt like maybe there could be a bit more performance, so I guess that is why it is an option on this car. I think that's a pretty comprehensive walk around and cover of the, let's get it right, in full, the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. A car that I have really quite enjoyed driving. I think the downsides are that it is very expensive for what it is, and you could argue that it is also unnecessarily powerful. This amount of capability in a car like this, do you really need that? It does, however, drive unlike a large SUV. It's not that big. It's physically not as big as you might think it is, so it drives in quite a dynamic and sporty way, which I do enjoy, but having a little bit more practicality. I think the coupe looks better than the larger car, the larger hatch, even though that might be more practical, and if this is practical enough, then this is clearly the car to go for. However, I've enjoyed this one, so it's a big thanks to Mercedes. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Do let me know what you think of it and whether this could be an option going forward, whether it's maybe too much of a stretch, because spec'd up, it's going to end up being quite an expensive proposition. There's no question about that, at £80,000 or so for one of these. Anyway, the 4-litre biturbo V8 has sounded amazing. The car has been really enjoyable to drive, and I think AMG are absolutely on form right now. Everything Mercedes are creating and making, well, they're all pretty wonderful cars. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the bell button to get notifications of the latest videos when they go live. That's it, though. Thanks again to Mercedes for the opportunity to drive this today, and I will see you guys again very soon. Thanks, guys. Cheers.